Hello and welcome back to another in-depth weather video. If you like this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss another in-depth weather video. Now here I am on the National Weather Service page, and we're still seeing that trend of the map starting to quiet down a bit. The heat advisories are starting to go away, which is a good thing, but they're also starting to shift east a little bit as well. But we don't have those excessive heat warnings anymore anywhere. It's not even up here on the map. On the actual kind of the key, if you want to call it that. So it's a good sign. It's a good sign. We have a few severe thunderstorm, I call them advisories, but they're really not that. Just severe thunderstorm related watches, warnings, advisories, that type of thing. And then we have those air quality alerts in multiple areas as well. I think 1 or 2 red flag warnings, so that's also started to quiet down a little bit. And a few flash flood warnings in Illinois here. That is probably related to our soaking rains in the Midwest starting to move east. They're starting to get out of we were talking about yesterday, the Minnesota, Wisconsin area and down into Illinois. That's starting to move out of there, starting to move east a little bit. But you still have some monsoon rains in the desert area, quote unquote desert area. This is really the desert, but some of the more arid areas of the country. Other than that, some tropical showers in Florida, Louisiana, Georgia, and then just a few very light rain showers popping up here on the radar a bit. Now let's go to the Storm Prediction Center. I want to start there. So here is the Storm Prediction Center. We do have a slight risk in areas like Buffalo, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh. Then you have this marginal risk here stretching from New York and Ohio through Pennsylvania and Maryland, West Virginia, Ohio, of course, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas, Missouri, and into Oklahoma. Another small risk here in areas like South Dakota, Nebraska, Colorado, Kansas, New Mexico, and Oklahoma. But other than that, everywhere else shaded here, this light green is the general thunderstorm category. So you have a chance of seeing some thunderstorms, but there is a very low chance of any of them being severe. Marginal risk 1 out of 5, slight risk 2 out of 5. Now, let's go to the excessive rainfall outlook. We do have some marginal risks today. The slight risks have gone away. One in New Mexico, Colorado, and the other one in, I'm going to just say, just to make this a little bit shorter, the same area in which this marginal and slight risks are in the Mississippi to the Ohio River and then into the Great Lakes region. So that basically follows this exact curve here. Maybe a little bit kind of cut off in Pennsylvania, but basically follows the same curve. Now let's go to the National Hurricane Center. Now I do just want to show that there's really nothing going on in the Atlantic. Not much expected here over the next 5 days. Next 10 days you kind of get a little bit more interesting, but next 5 days nothing. Now we do have this other disturbance here, 20% in 5 days. Now, I think that as we get closer to that 5-day mark, that might go up. And I'll show you that on the GFS model as we continue to work our way over to that. But this does have a 20% chance of forming, and we will discuss naming and everything as we get closer, but it should be Tropical Storm Douglas if it does get named. But this is definitely going to be a long-term storm. It's going to be more, not long term, but farther out the probabilities are going to get higher and higher as you reach that like 5-day mark. So now, I did say that I wanted to pull up the drought conditions. We do have drought, so I'm just going to go by category here. If you're in the white, you don't have a drought. Good job. Now, if you're in this yellow area, that is like dry. It's abnormally dry in your area. Now, if you're in this like beige orange color, you are in a moderate drought. If you're in this like orange color, like this red orange, like fire orange color, you are in a severe drought. Now, if you are full on red, like full red color, that is an extreme drought. And I don't think we have anyone under a exceptional drought, but that's like that super deep maroon color. But we do have these lines here. So we have short-term droughts wherever you see an S, and long-term droughts anywhere you see an L. And SL, it's kind of weird, like the S and the L are right next to each other. That's kind of, I think it's both. But if you're in like a line, it's delineates dominant impacts. But I think that's for like, it's gonna calm down a bit, or it might intensify. I'll look into that in between episodes. But here we go, drought change. That's better. So if you're in like these yellow, orange, and then eventually black colors, you are in that, okay, it's getting worse. Now, if you're in like greens and blues, it's getting better. And if you're in gray, there's no change. So last week, not much going on in the west. Some areas of the green in the central part of the country, that makes sense. And then in the northeast, it's getting worse. And within the last month, you can see that, but completely hyped up. Like, the northeast is definitely going into a worsened drought period. There's just not that much rain, but hopefully we can solve that a little bit with the super soaker that's coming along. And speaking of that, let's go to the NAM 3km model. So let's click along here. You can start to see that this is going to start to move through. And you can see those thunderstorms moving through, a little bit higher of a risk there. And then eventually it'll start to move into the northern parts of the northeast with that heavier rain. Now, the metropolitan areas of like Boston, New York, Philadelphia, and even DC, you're not going to get much out of this system. Possibly some thunderstorms, but the actual soaking part of this isn't really going to hit you. Now, let's move on to the monsoon areas, because that was also another big point on the radar. That's going to continue on, because that moisture is just trapped in there. There's a lot of dry air around it. Now, we can also see some more low pressures moving over, flaring up to the thunderstorms, and that's been really the pattern recently, is just everything fires up in the northern tier and then moves along. So let's actually cover temperatures first, then I'll finish off with that disturbance in the East Pacific. So, temperatures for today. Let's take a look. So, in general, 90s to triple digits in the south and west. So the further south and west you go, the more likely you are to get higher temperatures. Now, the further north and east you go, is the higher chance you get like 70s, 80s, that stuff. So, and then you also have some anomalies like the elevations in the Rockies. So that is kind of where it goes a little weird, because of the elevation and the effect that it has on temperature. But generally just 60s and 70s actually in Maine, but then 70s and 80s in most of the Northeast, Great Lakes, and then 90s and triple digits in the South, and then the Northwest is kind of a mess. But you can see some 70s, some 80s, and then a little bit of 90s in there too. Now let's go to the GFS let's talk about the East Pacific, shall we? So I think this is what we're talking about here. So yeah, right beneath. Yeah, I think this is our system right here. Now the GFS is showing some sort of development with this. Now, doesn't seem like it could strengthen a lot. Possible tropical depression. That would probably be Tropical Depression 7. But I think later in this loop, yeah, this system right here, this one could form into a tropical storm, and then the one right in front of it explodes. That could be possible tropical storm, hurricane, very low hurricane, low scale hurricane, Cat 1, barely. But earlier we were actually seeing if I go back to like the 6th Zulu time frame, yeah. There we go. So it shows that it was going to be a lot more powerful than it is showing now. So that's good news. That is good news. So that is where I'm going to leave it off for today. And I hope you all have a great Thursday, and I'll see you again tomorrow.